let's look at an overview of how we can use iPads to update entries in ShoWorks. This can be in the form of checking in entries, judging entries, livestock weigh-in, and even the self-check-in of exhibitors at a kiosk. In order to understand this simple process, let's take a look at the traditional means of using paper and clipboards to do the same task. We'll start by having all of the entries entered into ShoWorks on a regular desktop or laptop computer. In the paper method, the user would print out reports that had a list of entries ready to be checked in or judged. They would then staple these sheets of paper together and affix them onto a clipboard. That clipboard would then be given to a superintendent or judge who in turn would write down the results directly on the paper sheets. After signing off on these paper sheets, the clipboard is then walked back over to the person at the computer, who would then manually read and update the entries inside of ShoWorks. The margin for error and amount of labor used in this method is quite high. But if we use iPads and digital sheets to replace the clipboards and paper, the process is much faster and error-free. So again, we'll start with a regular computer that has ShoWorks installed on it. But instead of printing out paper sheets, ShoWorks can generate digital sheets with the same appearance and push those up to the cloud. An internet connection will only be needed at this point. In order to prevent the need for a constant internet connection, which would pose risks and challenges of its own, we'll follow the same synchronizing technique that's used in today's mobile applications. Once these check-in or judging sheets are available in the cloud, a judge or superintendent that has an iPad with ShoWorks can pull these sheets down onto their iPad. Again, an internet connection is only needed during the actual transfer or sync of the sheets to either device. After the sheets have been loaded onto a device, one can work disconnected and not depend on an internet connection to continue updating entries on the sheets. The superintendent or judge can now perform the updating activities just as they did with paper, but much faster and easier, simply with the swipe of their fingers. Because the entries remain in digital format, they can easily be searched and even barcode scanned using the iPad's built-in camera, or paired with a Bluetooth EID ear tag reader for livestock. And because no physical writing is involved, there are no problems with illegible handwriting or invalid ribbons and places being assigned, because the iPad only allows values that you have pre-assigned. Once the iPad user has completed updating the sheets, they can push or sync them back to the cloud once they have an internet connection. The sheets can now be pulled down into the local ShoWorks file from the desktop or laptop computer, and entries are automatically updated. The process is complete. And that's the method of using one iPad. Let's take another scenario where we have multiple iPads. As in the first scenario, the desktop or laptop computer creates sheets and again pushes them to the cloud. This time, however, two iPads will be looking to pull these sheets down from the cloud. Using our paper analogy once again, a physical set of sheets can only be at one place at any given time and will be given to whatever clipboard finds them first. So in a similar way, whichever iPad syncs first will receive those sheets. Once the sheets have been pulled from the cloud, they're no longer available to subsequent iPads. In order for another iPad to participate, the original desktop or laptop computer must create a new set of sheets to send to the cloud. And this time, the user with the iPad needing the sheets needs to ensure that they are first to sync or pull the sheets down from the cloud. Now that each iPad has their own unique set of sheets, they can, at any time, update and push them back to the cloud where they're eventually synced back to the original desktop computer. As you can see, this process would require the careful timing of when users would decide to sync or pull sheets from the cloud. This limitation can be overcome by using channels and assigning each iPad to a different channel so that sheets can be directed to specific iPads only. Using channels is simply a matter of tagging a sheet with an arbitrary letter that matches an iPad having that same letter pre-assigned to it in the ShoWorks app. Here's how it works. Just as before, the desktop or laptop computer creates the sheets, but this time it tags each sheet with a channel, such as Channel A. Now, when this sheet is pushed to the cloud, any iPad not marked as Channel A will not see the sheet, and only the iPad designated as Channel A will be able to see and pull it down. This gives the user much more control by targeting sheets directly to specific iPads. This flexibility also allows the user to make multiple copies of identical sheets to disperse across multiple iPads, even when they contain the same entries. ShoWorks keeps track of the exact moment of when each single entry is updated and synchronizes these changes based on a timestamp so multiple users can continue updating even the same entries across the same class without worry. Let's take a closer look at how entries are updated through ShoWorks on an iPad. Check-in and judging sheets look very similar to how they would appear on paper. Entries are grouped together by class on each page. The entire collection of pages within a sheet can be easily searched to locate entries. Barcodes and RFID ear tags also make finding entries fast and trouble-free. To update entries, the user just swipes either place icons or ribbon icons onto the rows by using their fingers. ShoWorks is also able to control how many places or what color ribbons you allow onto each class sheet. ShoWorks and the iPad also make a great combination as a kiosk, so that exhibitors can check themselves in, just as one does at an airport. Exhibitors can scan their receipt or mobile device to call up their entries which they previously made online. They can then tap to confirm which entries they're checking in, and, if you allow, make changes to their entries or add additional information at this time. Once they're finished, they can immediately receive a printout of their entry tags, back tags, or receipt. This entire process of scanning and checking in exhibitors eliminates, if not drastically reduces, the check-in lines and streamlines the overall process. Adding in multiple kiosks is simply a matter of dropping in more iPads at the check-in station. And that's an overview of using ShoWorks to check in and judge entries on the iPad.
Now the first step is getting the ShoWorks app onto the iPad. And you do that by downloading it from the Apple App Store. If the App Store icon is not obvious or present on the main screen, as it is now, you can swipe down on an iPad and type in what you're looking for. So I just type in App Store, and there we see it. We'll open it up, and then we just search for ShoWorks. Now you can also search for fair software entries and so on. So I'm just going to go up to the very top right, and I will type in ShoWorks, and we can see it up here at the top. So if you go to this actual app without downloading it first, it will show you all of the information about it and the minimum requirements. And then you can just tap on the download icon to begin downloading it. And it only takes just a few seconds here. Now once it's downloaded, you can either tap on the open button there, or I can go back to the main home screen and see that it has an icon set up for it. So we'll go ahead and open up the ShoWorks app. And when you first open it, if you have not registered the app with your serial number, you are given an opportunity to go into demo mode. And I'd like to recommend to you that you continue in demo mode when you first learn about the app. Otherwise, if you enter in your serial number, you won't see any of the sample information in there. So I'm going to go ahead and tap in continue in demo mode. And this will give us a chance to look at the ins and outs of the app and how to use it. So when you first open it up for the first time, you'll see that there are help overlays in the different screens. These show you just kind of a brief shortcut of how to use the app. And if you want to tap anywhere except for in the circled area, the help overlays will show up each time you open up the app. But if you don't want these overlays to show again, then you can tap in the circle that says tap here to not show this again. And you can turn these help overlays back on from the settings menu, and we'll cover that in a second. But as you go through the different screens, you'll see the help overlays for that particular screen. And so I'm going to turn these off and go back to the main sheet or the main menu. So when you first load up the app, you'll see that it shows a list of sheets on the left and then stats about those sheets, whichever one is highlighted, to the right. We're looking at a demo, and you can pull these same sheets up on your iPad if you are in demo mode and follow along with us in this session. but each sheet will display the number of departments, divisions, classes, and entries. So being that we're in demo mode, we can also print out some sample entry tags. You'll notice that down at the bottom it lists a website, fairsoftware.com/samples, if you want to print out some entry tags for scanning along and playing around with this here. And we'll talk about that in a second. So we have our different sheets, and those are listed, like I said, on the left. And you can scroll up or down to show these sheets that we have previously created with ShoWorks. You can search for these sheets to narrow them down. So if you have a lot of them, you can tap in the search button and type in, let's say I only wanted to look for sheets that had the word judge in them. So you see that it narrows them down just for those judging sheets. And I can tap out on the little X box there to clear out that search. So we also see in the sheets that are listed the dates that those sheets were created and last modified and saved. And so as we progress through the videos and save our work, you'll see that the timestamps are updated. Now the ShoWorks app is ready to go when you first install it, but there are settings that allow you to customize the app that fits your needs. This is found in the settings menu at the very top left. So I can tap the settings and this pulls up all of the ways that I can customize or make it adapt to my show or fair. The first of these is the ribbon color order. So if we place items and we give them ribbons, I will tap on this item, at least to tell ShoWorks which ribbons I want to use. So we see a list of all possible ribbons here, and they're in a particular order that is for the US. Now, if you're in Canada, you typically have your red ribbon given first. So we can tap and hold the handles. If you look to the very right column, you'll see these handles that I can tap with my hand, and I can move them up or down. And so if I'm in Canada, I'll put my red ribbon first. But you can also turn on and off the different ribbons that you may or may not use. So if you only use the first 4 of these and you don't use pink, green, purple, and brown, and so on, I can turn those off. So this is just a way, think of it as a ribbon bar that we'll use if we're judging and we want to have those ribbons at our disposal. The next item is whether or not you allow the same ribbon to be used over and over again within the same class. So if you have a Danish judging system, in other words, you give more than one blue ribbon in any given class or more than one red ribbon, then you'll leave this on. The next item is the ability to allow more than one first place, more than one second place, and so on. So the difference between ribbons are colors and places are numbers. So if you allow more than one 5th place, so if you want to give several people 5th place, well then you would need to turn this switch on. Most fairs though, however, only give one first place, one second place, and so on. The next 2 items are for the kiosk mode. And when we cover the kiosk mode in a few topics from now, these will make more sense. But this allows me to prevent people from going back to those entries after they have already been confirmed. Similar to if you check in at an airport and you choose your seats, and once you choose those seats, then you can no longer change them. That would be similar, or the analogy to this. The next item is the manual search timeout. So again, when we go to the kiosk mode, this will make more sense, but this allows you to require a password if anyone is going to search for exhibitors. They must know the system password. The archive sheet setting allows you to pull up sheets that you have previously saved, voided, or deleted, or sent back up to the cloud. So the ShoWorks app stores everything. Even if you've sent it away, there's always an archive there to go back to should you have any questions and want to pull something up. The scanning setting allows me to determine whether or not I want to scan entries. So for static entries, we scan entry tags with a QR code. That is the barcode that you'll see in a little bit that's printed onto the entry tags. It allows you to use the camera on the iPad to identify entries and pull them right up. You can also scan with an RFID reader that is paired to the iPad app. So this is for livestock. So if you're going to use an RFID reader to scan EID tags, the ear tags, you would select the RFID reader. Now, if you need help in connecting that RFID reader, then you can go on to the connection help, and we're going to talk about the RFID reader in a separate topic. The scan mode is just a way that the app functions after it is successfully scanned either an ear tag or an entry tag, and we're going to talk about that more once we go to that topic. The printing setting allows the ShoWorks app to print out either entry tags or back tags or receipts when exhibitors are checking in from the kiosk. And we're going to talk about that later on, but this just allows you to designate how your entry tags are formatted. The channel option allows me to use multiple iPads and designate each iPad with its own channel. For example, if your fair had 4 iPads, you could label each iPad its own channel, such as channel A or channel B or channel C or channel D. So each iPad would have their own channel, and that way when you sync sheets, only those iPads would receive those sheets. And we're going to talk about multiple iPads later on. The serial number is where you would register your iPad app. This number that you type in here is not to be confused with your service plan number. It is your serial number. It's a long, either 16-digit or 20-digit number that identifies your fare. So don't confuse this with your service plan number, which changes every year. This is just your serial number. But again, we recommend that you don't enter that in just yet. If you're learning about the program, just leave that blank so that way you can play around with the demo and the samples here. The help overlays is a way to turn back on those overlays that we saw. If you remember, whenever we first opened up ShoWorks, we saw a help overlay that gave basic instructions to those that were using it for the first time. So I will go ahead and turn that back off here. So you can turn it back on for new users to let them become familiar with the app. So I'm going to go ahead and go into one of the sheets here to show how you can navigate around. So there's really just 2 menus in the app, and the main menu, which we're at, shows a listing of all the sheets. And then we can go inside to a sheet that we have highlighted. So if I go and select whatever sheet I want, and I can tap the Go To sheet. Now, being that we're in demo mode, it's not going to prompt me for a password. But when you set up these sheets, you can designate a password, and that gives a level of protection so that just not anyone can update the entries. So we'll go to this sample sheet here called Home and Hobby Judging. Each page of this sheet shows a class. So if you look at the top, it shows that we are in the Department of Home and Hobby. Within that, we are in a division called Fine Woodworking. And within Fine Woodworking, we are in a class, 01, Contemporary Furniture. So this here list, as I swipe my finger up and down, shows a list of all entries that are in Class 1. I can move amongst the classes by swiping my finger or turning the page just to the left. So I'm swiping and going through the different classes. You'll see up at the top how my classes change. And I can swipe the other direction to go amongst the different pages. Now this may be a little slow if you have a lot of pages or a lot of classes. So you can navigate to other divisions and other classes by tapping the Go To button at the top. This allows me to see a list of all classes within their divisions, and I can scroll up or down and quickly go to whichever class that I want to. So I'm tapping on basket coiled of the basket ring gourds, and I'm now looking at that class. So I can use the Go To navigate amongst the thousands and thousands of entries in my sheet. I can also type in up here to narrow it down. So amongst all of the many, many hundreds of classes, I could type in something up here such as chocolate. And now I see all of the classes that have the word chocolate in them. So if I wanted to go to chocolate chip cookies, I'm now looking at those and can judge those accordingly. So using the Go To allows me to navigate across the many, many classes that we would have. Another way to find entries would be to use the search box at the very top. So if I tap in this search area, I can type in anything to find either an entry based on the exhibitor's name, their club, the description of their entry. Just really it searches for all text in there. So if I typed in John, it's going to pull up all of the entries that have that word John in them. And we even see one in here that says Kelsey Pierce, but I don't see the word John. But if I were to go to that, I would see that John is found in the description of that entry. So they made a woodworking art item that had something to do with John Wayne. So you can search the entire database using this search button up here. So I can type in other folks, just typing in the first few letters of that, and it shows me where they're at. And if I wanted to see just the entries for one particular exhibitor, I can type in their entire name, and now I can see all of the entries for that exhibitor. So I don't have to flip through a bunch of pages. I can see it right there. So that is the search box at the top. So we can swipe around, we can tap in the go to, and we can search to find those entries that we're looking for. You can also tap the column headings to sort any list that you have. So if I wanted to sort all of these entries on this class sheet by the exhibitor name, I can tap in the exhibitor column. If I tap it the first time, it'll sort it in ascending order, and you'll notice that with a little ticker beside that column name. If I tap it again, it'll sort it in descending order. So we can use this toggle to sort these by any of the columns. Now I can sort it by one of my other columns like place, and now I've sorted it first through seventh. And this is really helpful if you place all of the items and then you want to drag all of the ribbons to the appropriate place. You'll notice that there are columns that are in gray and the other columns that are in blue. Columns in gray mean you cannot change them. Columns in blue means that you can or edit the information in those columns. Another column that is visible is the mover column. So if you look to the right, very right of any column, you'll see that there are little handles by those. So if I tap and hold on one of these, it makes the entry pop out to where I can move it around. Now this is helpful for especially livestock shows, when the judge is moving the entries around before they do the placing. So they might move some entries around, and that way they can better organize them the same way they are in the showing ring. Now I want to use one of the other sheets to demonstrate some other features inside of these sheets. So I'm going to go back to the home screen, and this time I will go to the livestock judging sample that I've made. When you make a livestock sheet, more information is displayed than the typical judging sheet. For example, the animal's registration information, their date of birth, their weight and height, and so on. If you cannot see all of the information, you can tap on any of the rows inside of that, and it will pull up more information about that particular entry that you just tapped on. And that's the basics of moving around in sheets. So let's go back to the home screen here. Let's take a look at how we can update entries on sheets. Now the first type of sheet that I'm going to work with is a judging sheet. It's going to be a static judging sheet, but all judging sheets will allow you to update both the ribbon and places. Ribbons are colors and places are numbers. Now just as a review, I'm going to go to the settings menu here and take a look at two very important settings with regards to this. The ability to allow the same color of ribbon to be used multiple times in the same class is turned on. This means that I can give many blue ribbons within a class. Whereas the ability to assign multiple places, so numbers, within a class is turned off. So that means once I use first place, I can no longer use it again, and I have to use second and third. Keep that in mind as we go through the different sheets. So let's go through a judging sheet here. If I go to the Home and Hobby judging sheet, you'll notice that my ribbons are listed on the right and my places at the bottom. The only columns that I can update are those columns with a header that has a blue background. So you'll see in here that we can update both the place and the ribbon. As I move amongst the different classes, so one class per page, you'll see that the numbers down at the bottom change. That shows me that, for example, I've already used first through fifth place here, and so once I use a place, it no longer shows up. Whereas the ribbons, I have a limited number of those that I can use many, many times over, even within the same class. And again, that is going back to those settings that we have configured. So to update a place or a ribbon, I just tap and swipe that value onto the entry or row. I'm going to swipe in a sixth place here. And if you notice, whenever I drop it onto it, the background of those entries changes to a gray color. A gray color indicates that something has changed on them. You'll also notice that the column on the far left is checked. That is a checkbox that represents the confirmed to show. You may have already set all of your confirmed to shows to checked, but this will be up to you. But it allows you to not have any entries confirmed to show, and when you do check-ins or update entries, it'll automatically confirm them for you. So again, as I use these items, if I drag the places onto them, they're marked and I can see that I've updated them. Now, if you make a mistake, you just simply tap whatever you did and drag it back to the bar. So the same thing goes with the ribbons. Now, if I want, I can tap one of the column headings, as you have seen before, and it sorts these by whatever column heading I've tapped, and now I can easily swipe the ribbons onto those. And one other area that I can update is the moving of entries from class to class or from a division to another division. So for example, if I have specified in ShoWorks when I created the sheet that I want to allow the person to change the or to move the entries, I will be able to come in, and right now I'm going to tap on this one here that if I double tap on it, you'll see that it pulls up a move entry to, and I can move it to any other item. So I can just select which class I want to move it to, and now it's gone. So the moving of entries, you just double tap, select what class you want it to go to, and then tap move. Now, after you have updated a sheet, you're given the ability to either save your work as a draft so you can come back to it later and finish it, or you can finish the sheet by tapping complete. If you complete a sheet, the next time that you sync your iPad, that sheet will no longer be visible on it. It'll send it to the cloud so it can be later downloaded in ShoWorks. You can always dig those up in the archive, and we'll look that up later. And then you can also void a sheet. So if you don't want, if you've made some mistakes or you just don't want it, if you tap void, it will delete the sheet entirely. So let's go back to the main menu here. Now I'm going to look at a different judging sheet that I've set up. In this case, it will be for livestock, but I've also added another couple of columns that I can update. So in this particular sheet here, I'm going to go to a class that I don't have too many things updated. So I went up to the top and flipped over to that sheet. And you'll notice that I have division placing and special placing added as options in here. So the division placing, of course, is a drop-down that is either grand or reserve. And I can also type in a value in the special placing, in this case, best of show. And you can update these later after you download them in ShoWorks. So if you want to just type in maybe an abbreviation such as BOS, and then later inside of ShoWorks, you can do a find and replace and change those. And the next type of sheet that we can update is a weigh-in sheet or a livestock check-in sheet. If I go to it, I can see that I have yet again different columns. In this case, I have the tag ID I can update, the breed, the height, the date of birth, and weight. If I'm typing in a weight, when I tap on it, I'm given the numeric keypad here. If I am in a date of birth, I have a drop-down list that I can select the date of birth for. And then in the breed, depending on the version of ShoWorks that you're using, whether or not you actually have breeds in a breed table or not, you will either be able to type in a value here or have a select or a pick list if you're running one of the newer versions of ShoWorks. Whenever you update the items, of course, it will, as I mentioned before, it'll gray out the background and then it'll put a check in the confirmed to show box. Now, a great way to streamline things is taking advantage of the scanning ability in the ShoWorks app. So whether or not you're scanning static entries or livestock entries, the process is still the same. Static entries typically have a paper tag on them with a barcode, and you use the iPad camera to identify those barcodes. Whereas livestock entries, you use an RFID reader that's paired to the iPad, and that'll scan the ear tags of the animals with a little chip in them that represents the EID. But the process is still the same. You just need to go in and select which device you are using for that scanning. So I'm going to go in the settings menu, and then if you look, there is a scanning item. And this is where I can choose which scanning device I'm going to be using. Right now I have selected to use the QR code using the device camera. And then I also have a scan mode. This is one of 3 modes that we have. You have the default, which is search mode. And there's also a check-in or check-out mode and a judge mode. And it's best to just demonstrate the 3 different modes by doing some scanning. So I will go to first a static judging sheet to illustrate how we can use the device camera, and we can scan the entry tags, the barcodes. And those barcodes are called QR codes. And you've seen them pretty well everywhere. It stands for quick response code. So let's go into the sample static judging, and we'll use the barcoding for that. So when I'm ready to start scanning, I need to send the device into listening mode, is what it's called. And I tap on the icon that looks like whatever it is I'm listening or looking for. In this case, it's a QR code. So at the very top, when I tap that, it opens up the camera and it's ready to scan. So as soon as I move a QR code in front of it, it's going to attempt to find that entry and let me do with it whatever I want to. So I will go to my first entry tag, Coulter Michaels, and let's see if we can find it. And when it does find it, it pulls up that entry and it allows me to either place it or just look at it. And it's highlighted here for us. It doesn't change any data. So if I want to look at a different entry tag, I can go to Jerry's. And it finds Jerry's here, and we'll try yet another one. Here is Kyle's. And we can just keep doing this on and on. Now I'm going to go to an entry tag that's not found in here. It happens to be a photography tag. And it will tell me that that entry is not found. So scanning something, it'll make the nice mark, and whereas if it finds it, it'll make a pleasing beep sound. So that is search mode. Now we can change our different modes in here. One that's very similar is check-in mode. Check-in mode is different in that as soon as it finds the entry, it'll mark it confirmed to show. So I kind of think of this as a grocery store mode where whenever you scan an item, it records it in there. In this case, it's going to mark it confirmed to show. And it also does the same thing with checkout mode. It records the date and time that it was checked out. So if I scan my entries now, it's going to put a check in the box to the left. So I'll scan my next entry. And it keeps the window open, ready for me to scan each of the items here, putting a check in the box for confirmed to show. And the other mode is called judge mode, and this is different in that it closes the camera window and allows me to update the entry with a place and or ribbon. So as soon as we find an entry, in this case we'll go to Coulter's entry here, it closes the window and it allows me now to place it. So if I want to drag a place onto that and give it a particular ribbon, after I do that, it'll open the camera back so I can then find the next one that I'm judging. And here we have found one. I can again place it according however I want. So it opens back up the camera as soon as I drop the places onto it, both the place and the ribbon. Now, if you want to do something different, if you're only giving it places or only giving it ribbons, you can go into the settings menu. And when you go under the scanning modes of judge mode, you will see that I can either open up the camera whenever, after I update the ribbon or the place or both of those. I have it set to allow me to drop the place on there first, and then after I drop the ribbon on, the camera will be open.
Let's take a look at a couple of RFID readers that are available on the market to pair with the ShoWorks app and allow you to scan those entry tags. The reader needs to be both Bluetooth and iOS compatible. And we're looking at a couple that are made by Allflex. One of them is relatively new. It's called the LPR, and it is fairly inexpensive and allows you to tote it around pretty easily. The other is more traditional, and it's the wand reader that allows you to reach way out and scan those tags without having to get too close. This is the RS420 model. So the first thing we need to do is pair that with the iPad, and you only have to do this process once. Depending on the model you're using, the instructions may vary, but we're going to use the 420 to do that. So what I'm going to do first is grab my iPad and go into the setup menu and turn on Bluetooth if it's not on already. Okay, so we tap that here. Now our iPad will be listening for the device. Then I'm going to grab the 420 here and turn it on. I'll just press the bottom button and let it boot up. And I'm going to enter into the setup menu by pressing the top button. There's two buttons on here. If I press and hold the top button, it will enter into the setup menu. And now I can go down to the Bluetooth settings, and I do that by pressing the bottom button until that menu is highlighted. So I'm pressing the bottom button. Now that Bluetooth settings is highlighted, I'll press the top button to confirm. And then I'm going to go down to iPhone Discoverable. So I'm going to press the bottom button here until it is highlighted. Once it's highlighted, I'll press the top button. And now it is waiting to be paired. So I'll go back to my iPad, and I should see it show up down at the bottom here. And there it is. If I tap it, it'll then prompt me if I want to pair it with the device, and I'll go ahead and pair that. And you'll hear a sound from the reader there letting me know that it's all ready to go. So I'll confirm that by pressing the top button on the device. And we are connected and all ready to scan. So we're going to go into the app and scan. Now that they're paired, I don't have to worry about it unless if it does become unpaired, I can go back in and just turn on the Bluetooth again. But the button we only need to really worry about now is this bottom one. This is the listen button here. When I tap that, it's going to look for a tag, and it'll beep saying that it's reading, and I can wave the tag in front of it to scan it. So now we're going to go back into the app and scan these tags.
Now, generally at this point, I'm ready to start scanning my livestock. And I could go to one of my sheets down here that I have made. It's a weigh-in sheet, and I would be typically ready to start scanning. But if I look at the top right, I see that my device selected is the QR code or the barcode reader using the iPad camera. I need it to use the RFID reader. So I'm going to go back to the home screen, and under the settings menu, I'm going to choose scanning. And then I'm going to change the scanning device from the QR code to the RFID reader. And if you need some connection instructions, those are available too from this menu. So I'm going to go back. I could change the scan mode to one of the other three modes, but at this point I'm going to leave it at the default. So search mode is just simply going to search for those entries. So now whenever I go into the sheet, I can tap on the icon at the top to tell the device reader to start listening. And now I can start scanning my tags. So as it goes through the different entries, I just press the button on the wand and scan the livestock. If I happen to get to a tag that's not found in the system, such as one of these, it will make a sound at me telling me that that device or that tag is not in the system. So that is search mode. We can go into check-in mode or check-out mode, and that does a similar thing, but it puts a check in the box next to the entry, and that's the either confirm to show or the checkout box, depending on how you have made this sheet. So it is updating the entries, and as I mentioned earlier, it's kind of like a grocery store mode that it just scans them and puts a check in them, timestamps them, and it moves on. The other mode is judging mode, and that allows me to swipe an item on there before it listens again. And that's very similar to the search mode, but I would need to be in a livestock judging sheet to do that. So I'm in here, and if I scan one of the entries,
Then I can swipe my places onto it and continue on judging, and it goes back into listening mode so I can look for another animal and so on. So that is using RFID and the ShoWorks app. So now let's look at a way that we can allow exhibitors to check themselves in from a kiosk. The analogy here would be like an airport allowing passengers to avoid the long check-in lines by walking up to a kiosk, either scanning something of theirs in or typing in something that identifies them and pulling up their information and possibly allowing them to make any changes and reprint their boarding passes. Well, the same thing can be done for a show or a fair. The exhibitor can walk up, either scan their online entry receipt or scan in their mobile device like we saw before in the online entries, or type in their name and look themselves up. And we're going to do this by demonstrating with one of the kiosk sheets that we have set up prior. And if you're following along, you will see down at the bottom a place to go to on our website to print out some sample online entry receipts that you can scan and follow along if you're in demo mode here. So I am going to the kiosk check-in example, and when I first pull it up, this is the screen that everyone will see as they arrive to the kiosk area. So again, you'll take your iPads and insert them into the kiosk stands. You can get those stands pretty well anywhere. If you go on Amazon, you'll find many iPad stands. But they'll walk up to the kiosk and be able to begin the process. So I will tap that on. And the first thing that I'll notice is that it's ready to either scan their barcoded receipt or their mobile device, or they can manually search for their name. If I do a manual search, ShoWorks will prompt them for an administrative password. Now, right now I'm in demo mode, so it doesn't mind, but in real practice, it's going to prompt them for the same password that the administrator does whenever they create the sheet. And that way you don't have people searching for other people and changing their entries. So I will scan my receipt that I've printed out from my online entries or my mobile device, and so the barcode on there pulls up all of the entries for Coulter Michaels. It'll list those, and sometimes it will show an asterisk if there's missing information. When you configured this sheet, if you had designated that certain fields were required and the entry doesn't have those fields, the exhibitor will not be able to check them in until they complete that entry. So I'm going to do just a couple of entries here and check them in. So these are the two that I've brought with me, and I tap the confirm selected entries and I can print, and I'm off and running. Right now I'll cancel it, but this would show what the printout would look like. I'm printing 4 per page, and if you remember, in our setup menu, in our settings, we can designate the printout for the layout of the entry tags, whether or not they're back tags, entry tags, or a thermal printer receipt. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish this without printing them, and in practice though, it would print them out if you have an Apple AirPrint compatible printer. But let's go a little deeper into this. So this time I'm going to do a little bit more. So I'm going to make some changes if the fair has allowed that. So when I go in to the kiosk, I will scan my receipt. And this time, I would like to more specifically look at some of these items. So you'll see at the top, I cannot check one in because more information is needed. And if I tap either yes or go to the view button, it will show me more information about that item and what's actually missing. So evidently it's looking for a description. And again, you configure what you want to require and what you want to collect. So this is something like my animal. Not necessarily descriptive of this thing here, but I can change any of the information that is in white. So these are some user-defined fields that I've set up, and I can just set those things up already, and I can tap it as confirmed. Maybe I want to skip the next entry and possibly the next one. I'll confirm this one here, and then finally I will confirm the last one. And again, that brings up my print dialog to where I can print out my tag or my back tags and be on my way. So this is the kiosk mode for checking in exhibitors really quickly, letting them do it all by themselves. So to create sheets for the iPad, we're going to follow a very similar process as we have done in the past when creating reports. Essentially, we're going to decide the layout and then we will filter it to only show certain records. So I'm going to go up to the Cloud tab and choose Create Sheets. And the first step is the ability for me to decide what layout I want. I can choose some general layouts to the left, whether or not they're judging sheets or check-in or check-out sheets, and if they are static or livestock, because livestock will display a lot more fields that are relevant to animals, such as the registration information and so on. I'm also given the opportunity to further customize the sheet, choosing which fields I want to display or not on the right. Now there is a kiosk mode that we can do, and if you haven't seen the video clip already, this allows exhibitors to check in on their own when they walk up to a kiosk. And so this kiosk mode allows me to determine which fields are going to be visible, which fields are going to be allowed to be edited, and which fields are required. So I encourage you to check out that clip there to see how the kiosk works. We also have a custom template mode if there comes the need for you to require some type of degree of customization. We can do that for you for an additional service, and we'll send you the instructions on how to import those templates into the software here. But for example purposes, we're going to create just a typical judging sheet, and I'm going to go to the next screen, and this allows me to filter that down to only certain records. So I'm going to do it just for one division here called beating, and then I'm going to sort it by last name and then first name. If I wanted to further filter this, I could, and you've seen that from the past videos, but I'm going to click next, and I'll give it a name such as my sample judging sheet, and I'm going to give it a password. This time I will use the password of test. Now we need a password because we don't want just anyone getting a hold of the iPad and judging the entries or changing information. And then we can select a channel. So the channel allows me to specify which iPad I want it to go to if I have more than one. You may want to put a piece of tape on the back of multiple iPads if you're using multiple iPads, and that way you can direct these sheets to only appear on certain ones. But I'm going to leave it at the default here, which is all channels. And then I'm now looking at the final step, which allows me to sync these things to the cloud. I'm looking at 8 sheets. So I've built all of these sheets so far. You don't have to sync them all at once. You could just build all of your sheets and then sync them at the end. And if I do so here, depending on how fast of an internet connection I have, it'll send them all up to the cloud. So all 8 sheets have been sent up there. If I would have had some sheets that needed to be pulled down from the cloud that I've already updated, they would have synced as well. So we can now go to the iPad and look at those sheets. So I'm now on my iPad, and I'm no longer in demo mode because I have entered in a serial number when I started the app. So there are no sample sheets in here, and I'm ready to sync them or pull them down from the cloud, the ones that I just sent up. You can do this either by tapping on the sync button at the very bottom of the screen, or you can just swipe and pull down the list of where sheets would belong. So this is going to pull them down depending on your internet speed. And it's important to note that you only need internet access when you are syncing. You do not need to have internet access when you're actually working with the sheets. And now it's pulled down all 8 sheets that I've created from ShoWorks, including the one that I just made, which was my sample judging sheet. So if I were to tap that, I have a password that I must enter in. If you remember, it was test. So I will go into that, and now I'm looking at this sheet that I can easily update. So I can drag the places on here, maybe drag the ribbons, and it really just doesn't matter. I can flip through the different classes and assign places to these. So we're going to update a few entries here and go ahead and save it as a draft. So I'm going to tap the middle button at the top, and it's going to make those saves on there. So now if I go back, I will see a little pencil mark with a date that it was last modified. And I can go in and
make any other changes, I'll go to my home and hobby, and I will make a few changes on this sheet. So let's go ahead and place one of these items here. Maybe I want to sort it and assign a green ribbon to one of these people. And this time I'm going to complete it. The difference between saving draft and completing is that completed sheets will sync back up to the cloud once you have synced the app. So I have my home and hobby judging ready to go, but my sample judging sheet is still in progress. If I go to one of the other sheets here, I will do so. And let's say I have made some changes on here, but then I have decided that I don't want to accept those changes. I can either leave this sheet and those changes will not be saved, or if I want to get rid of the sheet entirely, I can void it. So if I go back into the sheet, I can tap on void, and this will queue it up to be deleted the next time the sheets are synced. You can also swipe away from these if you want to just simply archive them and you're not going to use those. So I could archive one of these sheets here and it doesn't show up. And if I want to go to my archives, I can tap on settings and choose archive sheets, and it'll see all of the sheets that I am not wanting to use. That'll also include the sheets that I've synced up to the web. So let me go in and make one more change. I'll go into my market steer judging, and I will make a change or two in here. There's third place, and I will give it a yellow ribbon, and I will mark it as complete. So now I have two completed sheets. I have one in progress, and I have one that I have deleted. So when I sync this, the completed sheets will be sent up to the cloud, and the voided sheet will be deleted. So now those sheets have been sent up to the cloud. I still have the one that I'm working on. Maybe I want to go to it and make a few more changes before completing it. Maybe I'll go to an entry here and place that, and I'll sort these and give my ribbons to these as well. And now I've marked it as complete, and we'll send that back up to the cloud. And now I'm left with the three sheets that I haven't worked with yet. So just as a review, I want to go back to the settings and look at my archived sheets. This shows me a list of sheets that have been completed already, and one that's been voided, and another one that I just haven't even worked with. If you need to restore some archived sheets, so let's say, for example, you synced the sheets, or maybe you accidentally voided a sheet and you don't want to void it, you can select them and restore them from the little icon at the top. Or if you want to select more than one, you can tap the edit button and select the different ones that you want to restore. So I've selected 3 of those here, and I will tap on restore, and this will send them back to my main home screen there. So we are now done with judging on this iPad, and we can pull them back from the cloud on the ShoWorks program. So now we're going to pull those sheets back down from the cloud and sync up with the local copy of ShoWorks. In order to do that, I'll just go up to the Cloud tab and select Sync Sheets. This looks for any sheets that need to be sent to the cloud and any sheets that are in the cloud that need to come down to this local copy. And it says that I have 3 sheets ready to receive. These are the 3 sheets that we just updated. If you want, you can delete them from the cloud, but we are not going to do that. We'll just go ahead and pull all of them down. And I want you to take a look at these 2 bottom items. We can update the confirm to show for all items that have been updated on a sheet. And we can also choose whether or not we want to overwrite any existing values with nulls. Now this option is on by default, but what that means is if I have made changes to entries locally here and a sheet up on the cloud has had that value removed, then it will remove it when I sync it down. But just go ahead and leave these 2 as on by default if you don't understand what's going on there. So I'll go ahead and sync these. So it pulls them all down one at a time based on the order that they were updated, and it will pull a sheet down, update the number of entries from that sheet,
and complete that here with all of my entries being taken care of. So now there is one thing that I do want to show you is the retrieving archived sheets. So ShoWorks stores these sheets in a file on the machine just in case anyone were to ever need to look up the results or question something that would have happened. If you go up to Retrieved Archived Sheet, it's going to give you a notice here that you don't want to pull in data from years ago accidentally, but these are all of the sheets that I've pulled down. And so if I wanted to, I could sync up again one of the sheets. Now I could sort these by the date they were last modified, and I could pull in a sheet that I've already judged, and now it's going to say that it's going to overwrite and update the entries based on that archived sheet. So that's a way to kind of protect yourself if you ever had to go back and look up, had questions on what entries have been updated. So that is syncing the sheets that we've made. If I close this, it's going to tell me that I have points and premiums that need to be refreshed. So if we have any points and premiums assigned, then it will recalculate those so that I have the latest information for those. So if you don't have an iPad and you have an Android or laptop or even smartphone, even a desktop or laptop, you can access some of the same features from the cloud. Now this feature at the time of the videos isn't quite available yet, but we're going to go through it, and it looks strikingly similar to the iPad app. Now, if given a choice, we would recommend that you would use the iPad app because anytime you have an app that is local, it's going to run much faster and smoother than from a web browser. So, but still, it offers that flexibility. So we're going to go into demo mode here, and we're going to see that just like the iPad, it lists all of the sheets that I've made on the left, and I also have the settings at the top. So this is where I could enter in my serial number so I can pull up my own sheets and even sort the sheets here. So let's go to one of these sheets. I'll go to the Home and Hobby, and I'm going to see again that it is quite familiar, just like the iPad. So I have all of my entries per class on each individual sheet, and I can place them just by dragging the places to them as well as the ribbons. And then we can go to other classes if I want to down here and search for those. So again, it's very similar, almost identical to the iPad app, but it gives a little bit more flexibility for using it on different devices. Now this next feature is amongst the most unknown features inside the program, and once you realize how easy it is, you'll wonder why you ever did it the old way. So whenever you want to publish results, in the old days you would print them out and hand them to the newspaper or media. Then along came the ability to publish results to PDF files and upload those to the internet, where you would set links that people could view the results. That often took a lot of time, and it was difficult for many people to understand how to work with, and you had to depend on the network or the computer gurus to publish those for you. But you can publish results from both the judging and the sale much easier than that. So we're going to go up to the cloud, and we are going to publish the judging results. When I'm in this screen, I have given the option to group entries together by division and by class, and also select what columns I want to display on those results. So let's say we want to display the photography results, and maybe I want to display the exhibitor's name and where they're from, maybe the club that they're in. I'd like to display the place. Maybe I'm going to check on the ribbon but not display the division placing, but I do want to display the amount of premiums that they received. I'll click the next button, and here it gives me a chance to filter this. I will filter by the department of photography, and since I only want to show entries that received a place, maybe through 10th place, I will filter this where the place is from 1 to 10, and I'm going to sort it by place. Now I'm going to choose the next button,
and give this a title of my report. So I will put up here the photography judging results. Click the next, and that's all there is to it. So now I can view these results right now if I wanted to. I can click this link so it shows the results of the photography that I just published to the web. And it gives me a nice clean layout that anyone can go to using the link above. Now this link can be embedded into your own website. So if I go back into ShoWorks, you can either give this link to anyone to put up on the web, or you can copy this entire link and put it in any kind of email, or even embed this page on your website. But you can also publish it to Facebook, Twitter, or Sapphire. If I were to click one of these buttons, it would load up the current account that I have last assigned or logged into from this machine, and I could type something in there as well, such as congrats to all of the exhibitors. Here is the results, and post that to Facebook. I could also post it to Twitter, and if I go there, now I'm given a warning saying it's going to navigate away from my Facebook page, but this shows the link in my Twitter account, so I could tweet that there. And then finally, I could publish it on Sapphire. Sapphire is a third party that hosts a lot of fair websites. And so for more information about that, you can click on what is Sapphire. So we can do that for the judging results, but I can also do it for the sale. So here is my publishing to the sale, and I have other fields that are related to the auction, and I'm just going to let these display as the default, and I'm going to filter it, if I wanted to, only for the divisions that are for the sale. So I will highlight those and click next and say the sale of champions. And now I see something similar. So again, I see all of the links that I could stick up on my web page or publish to Facebook, Twitter, or Sapphire. And if I wanted to, I could view those results. So this is the nice layout that is so easily published to the cloud. Anyone can see that, and I can update these records at any time. So that is publishing information to the cloud.